Hello, everyone. Welcome to IA Simplified, a podcast series where we meet industry leaders to discuss the impact of intelligent automation on SMEs and mid markets. So, I'm your host, Talani Jayatikolo from RPA Jargon. So, I'm going to be speaking with two amazing people today. I have Rajesh Patil and I have Kevin Murphy with me from Digital Align, and we're going to be talking about credit union automations. We're going to be looking at opportunities, looking at different aspects about union automation. And Kevin and Rajesh, welcome to IA Simplified. And let's hear from you. Just a brief description, Kevin.
Hi, Talani. First of all, thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it. I am the VP of Sales for Digital Align. So excited to be here, share some of the successes, some of the opportunities that we see out there in the industry today. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Thank you, Talani. Thanks for having us. My name is Rajesh Patil. I'm the CEO and co-founder at Digital Align, and good to be here.
I want to unpack, the importance of intelligent automation in this space, and I think I want to start from the very beginning. What has really changed in credit union? I know, Kevin, you have 20 odd years of experience in credit union. You started from the RBC capital markets, and you went into McGraw Hill credit before it was bought by a different credit union. So I want to know what has really changed from your perspective in terms of credit union automation.
Well, admittedly, and you keep reminding me of the 20 plus years I got the grays now. Way back in the day, I looked a little darker than this, but I did start, admittedly, on the dark side. I was on the banking side of things with Royal Bank of Canada, and then went over to McGraw Hill Federal Credit Union. Now, when I got to see the not-for-profit banking style, the vision, I really fell in love with it, and there was no looking back from there. I feel that choosing a credit union or a community bank to be your sole depository or your primary depository is a great way to keep those funds within the local communities and keep them thriving. So I've always been a strong believer of that. And I think that still resonates with most consumers that both Rajesh and I meet with. The average loan and deposit amounts within the credit union sector alone has grown, roughly 2.5 times over the past 20 plus years. We now have close to 100 million credit union members throughout the United States alone. And that number will continue to grow. Over the past 20 years, the past 2 decades, I've seen a lot more focus on the technology side of the house, if you will. And that is going to be extremely more important. I mean, it's more important now moving forward. Smart credit union leaders know they cannot continue to ignore this area, a very important area, if they want to continue to compete and attract the younger generations of credit union members that expect the lower rates, they expect the higher deposit rates. However, they also expect to be able to access their accounts from their phone or tablet, whether it be 1 in the afternoon or 1 in the morning. So, more and more credit unions are becoming more aware of this, and they need to focus there, especially.
Brilliant. I've never really thought about credit unions with personalized banking. So I think it's putting a lot of things into my head right now. I'm like, no, Kevin, stop it. There's quite a lot of work from that. So Rajesh, over to you. I know you have, you're coming from, the tech background. You're, digital transformation leader. You've, worked in, credit union as well. You started, with credit union, 11 years ago. Let's unpack that. You started with, Tech Federal, Credit Union, and you were, you took a very monumental position. Taking people into from what you used to be to emerging into emerging tech. What's really changed from your perspective?
Yeah, no, thank you. So I joined First Tech back in 2011, and my first goal was to get the two credit unions merged together, and they become a much bigger credit union. And when we looked at the tech stack, we were way behind than where we should be, right? The name was First Tech, but we were not first in the technology space. So that was the mandate given to me to lead the whole transformation from bottom up, right? We didn't put some shiny objects on top, but instead took a bottom up approach, understood the business, and went on transforming the plumbing behind before we put the shiny objects on front. So that experience that I had doing that resulted into 300 to 400% increase in revenue for the credit union. I mean, that result itself that we saw kind of led me to take that experience, the story that I had, to start Digital Align and work with many other credit unions to help them in their digital strategy, show them how it can be done, not just by putting say new online banking or new mobile banking, but take the back end processes, understand them, improve them, remove the fix the plumbing on the back end with technology, and then improve it. And that's what led me to kind of understand there is a lot more to be done in that space. And I once I started at First Tech, I stuck in there. I've spent all my latest career in the credit union space working with credit union. I work with community banks like Toyota Savings Bank and other small community banks, but I think credit unions be in the space. But yes, that's my background. Taking that technology experience, the credit union system experience, that's what we are making use to transform the rest.
I think I like all this, all these buzzwords like digital transformation, personalized banking, all of this. It's really all these touch points. It's really important, like in modern day banking. But I'm gonna pick your brain on a few things. But the first thing I want to pick your brain on is just when we look at large banks. You have large banks on the other side. You have credit unions. What do you think that you would want credit unions to be better at? I'm throwing you a curveball question. It's on the spot. What do you want credit unions to be better at? In comparison to large banking.
Yeah, I'll go first. I think the focus on value creation, right? Credit unions are a not for profit. They are not a non-profit, but they are not for profit. They have members. The until now the recent like the focus was more on service oriented, not on a sales. But I think banks are fully focused on heavily on sales oriented. They want to push the product. Credit unions don't do that. But I think the three words, if we have to say what the value added delivery, what the credit unions kind of need to focus on, doesn't matter. It comes from the service, it comes from the sales. That's what they kind of need to do little more than what the banks are doing a lot of it. But that's what I think the credit unions need to change on, taking that pure service sales into a service focus into a service to sales focus, because end of the day they have to run a business even though it is a not for profit. I think that is what changing in the few years what I've seen.
So, Kevin, I want you to weigh in on this.
Hmm.
What is this? What have you seen from your experience?
Well, I would say if I had to put it into three words, I would say more advanced technology is probably the most important thing that the credit unions need to continue their focus on. I also think another one would be, stop the paralysis by analysis, where I see way too much of it, where the big banks have made great strides, say, in this area, and granted maybe have the larger budgets and can move forward with these projects a little bit faster. But we do see, both Rajesh and myself see, a lot of the paralysis by analysis where the analysis never seems to end. And we all learned the hard way throughout the pandemic, where we need to progress. We need to take that first step. And that first step may be a simple, small one, proof of value, proof of concept kind of step to start, trending in the right direction. And I think that's probably the most important thing.
Interesting. And now that you've mentioned pandemic, I'm really interested in that word. First off, I need to congratulate you guys on, the collaboration you have with Patelco Credit Union. I see, how you guys are, changing things around home loan automations. You wouldn't expect to see 35 processes in 5 months developed in any credit union. It's even tough to see that in large banking as well because of the bureaucracies and or the politics trying to get processes into production. Well, and you're it's going, the numbers are going up, 2.4 million transactions. It's amazing. What's happened? How did you, again, there are two things I want to ask. One, how did you do it? Secondly, what were the steps, what were the right processes for you to, really get that ROI that was really beneficial for the credit union?
I'll go first on this, Kevin. I'll have you follow up.
Yes,
So,
please.
you had a great point that Chalani were 35 process in 5 months, right? It was a big order, and the reason for it was it came from the top down, right? The CEO knew that in 4 months they are getting a flood of refinance and HELOC applications that are going to come. They had the market steady, and she wanted to be prepared before that timeline to get this automation in place. So when we were brought in, we had a great success with another credit union where we had built this 35 processes in the 5 to 6 months, and that's when we talked to Patelco. They gave us a mandate on saying if you can get it done in the short 4 months, because we want to be prepared for that. And that's when we put a large team, and the experience that we had already done this before with other credit unions. With that experience, we had a set of libraries, a set of processes that we have pre-built, and kind of implementing it with their, customizing it to their business, because we have created this product using these processes. It's not done from the scratch, and that's what led to us the success in getting it. Now the bigger contribution is from the staff, right? Now, since it came from the top down, the whole organization was driven, including at the lower level. The resistance that we normally see when you go in from a bottom up was not there, right? And we spend a lot of time in environment creation, in setting up the bar. All this was taken away because of the kind of a mandate that had been given, and we got that flexibility where things were happening overnight. The processes were identified. We did the discovery, talked to all the team members, documented their processes in 4 to 8 weeks, and identified these processes. So the approval process was not delayed. That moved faster, and then us having the experience kind of got to a point where we were able to do so many processes. And third component was, since we had built a product around it, very data driven. We were capturing data on every step of it and using that as an analytics to fix things much faster and stabilize them. So the adoption was significantly high. So three things. The mandate came from the top leaders, and the ability to not have resistance internally. And for us, the way we were doing, adoption was significantly high. Those three things kind of gave us the kind of success we had with this credit union. I think that's the background on how we did it.
That's interesting. Kevin, do you want to weigh in on that? Because I'm really keen to hear from your experience, considering you have a lot of mortgage lending experience. I want you to weigh in on that. What was
Sure.
success like for you?
Yeah, I think just to echo what Rajesh mentioned, because he's very, very proud, but he's also very, very humble. And I think the way that I've kind of, walked into it and saw it happening midstream was the adoption piece. And Rajesh mentioned it, but it really is, there's an art to it. And Rajesh and our team, we've really perfected it without speaking too highly of us, but it really is an art form. And when the leadership is properly aligned with the staff, it just takes those strides, and those pieces they start coming together and gelling a lot more cohesively, and that's what I saw happening. And also, one other thing I'd like to add is it's not just lending. I come from a lending background, so that's really, I was a former chief lending officer at my last institution, but it's not just lending anymore, and that's what I see more often than anything. The lending is great because it's generating the revenue. Its impact is made and it's seen almost overnight, it seems. However, this parlays into other areas within the institution where there's heavy, heavy manual labor going on that we can take off their plate. We can also assist in the compliance and errors by reducing both of the risk and the stress associated with both. So seeing all of those things come together, and like you mentioned, Talani, I mean, almost overnight, in automation terms, it was overnight. And just to continue seeing these tasks just continue to rise at 2.4 million plus that have happened since last July. I'm so proud to just be affiliated with this team.
I'm proud to be affiliated with you as well. So
Oh,
I'm joining in the glory as well. Because I think it's very important. When we talk about things like RPI or some of these technologies, how the idea behind this is agility, and I think that over the years we've lost that. RPI has gone back into traditional IT way of delivering, and seeing that we can deliver much quicker for the business and returning ROI. It's interesting, and I really love that part of it. And I want to really, I think there's some of the things you touched on as well. I know you come from the mortgage lending background, your previous experience, and as a chief of that. Do you feel that from your experience pre-COVID now, are people still focusing on only mortgage lending processes, or are there other processes that are opening up?
Oh, there are so many other processes opening up. Mortgage lending was always kind of the easy answer there. It was always kind of the go-to, if you will. When mortgage rates were historically low back in 2020, up until very, very recently, now, here in the States, we're seeing mortgage rates upwards of 5% now. Applications are starting to dry up a bit on the mortgage side of the house, but we are seeing now more of an impact, more application growth, and essentially more revenue growth on the home equity side of the house, where more folks are deciding to stay put. Higher rates out there. They're not going to go out and purchase a new home and take on a 5.25, 30-year mortgage. They're going to stay put and build on the equity that they've already built up in their home. So we've done a great deal of automation on the HELOC side is really where we're seeing a huge opportunity now. Heavy manual work is involved on the HELOC side. So we've seen a great deal of additional institutions reaching out to us, or the institutions that we're already working with, we're now trending more into that area.
Brilliant. I think there's one friction point in the industry, which is ROI. Every time you talk about RPA, there's always ROI. It's always a second statement afterwards. And I want you to there's some questions I think when it comes to ROI, I've always had that question in my head, right? When do we need to just focus on like cost related ROI, or when do we need to focus on value, or the value added, when should we do this? What are some examples, Rajesh?
Yeah. No, I think that's the value added ROI, the cost added ROI, right? It's kind of, according to me, the cost ROI is 10 to 15% only. 10 to 15% of the overall value what you will get. The value added ROI is what the significant chunk of it, right? And some of the value added ROI, you can't put it in numbers. It's not tangible. It's hard to, revenue is the only one, or the number of applications is the only one. You can tie some numbers to it and show that ROI, but the rest of it, zero error rate. If a compliance miss happens and you get slapped with a huge fine, that cannot be quantified with it. That's a huge value. And the employee satisfaction or the member satisfaction cannot be measured in an easier way. So for me, the cost ROI is important. You have to reduce the cost, but don't lead that with the cost ROI. Lead with the value driven. What value driven? What new revenue you are bringing? What kind of these non-tangible values that you're getting? And then the remaining, you still have to show how many FT hours have been done, but that keep it as a secondary, right? If you start with the FT hours saved and the number of dollars saved, you cannot show the ROI. That the numbers won't match. Now you're looking at, you're reducing 3 people's job who are paid probably half the technical developer, and you're adding 2 more developers to do the automation. The ROI doesn't blend in. But you have to look at how do I do something that can scale up in the future. But that's my, always keep it 10 to 15% of your value getting in ROI. And us as the industry leaders who are driving this, educate the industry on saying, great, you're talking about that, but that's only 10 to 15%. Let's talk about the remaining 80%, which are the other things that is a value driven ROI.
Brilliant. I really love that. Because at this point, I'm beginning to, you always have to talk to people about, non-cost related, your compliance, your, even keeping customers at this point is also a value add as well. And people need to really, really see that from that perspective. And I think I want to go from OKI into another stream of something called intelligent automation. And I know you've seen that, this, it's almost like it's an evolution. It's changing. What people think about automation is completely different from now. How you have these buzzwords, intelligent automation, hyper automation, digital process automation, which technically they kind of mean the same thing. But I really want to see, what would be your advice for credit unions, trying to implement RPA, AI, intelligent automation in the next 12 months?
Yeah. So, it's you start small, right? You start with something which is more of a non-intelligent automation, right? When I say non-intelligent, a rule-based or data entry kind of those processes, that's where you start. But I think the bigger value that we are seeing is in adding a little bit of intelligence to these processes. One example is when Kevin mentioned about HELOC, it's not just processing the HELOC, but we have put a bot that's making decisions on HELOC. The certain rules that have been given by the credit union, it checks those, makes certain minor decisions, and reading the document, running the OCRs, understanding what has been signed or not. That simple level of intelligence that you add, that will take you a much bigger value. So my recommendation is always, start small, because you have to show the value to the staff. End of the day, people make or break the organization. If your people, your staff is not on board with this, and the trust between technology and people is not there, then you will not go anywhere. It seems like you are going somewhere. 5 months down the line, you take your hands off, everything will go back to the old ways that the people were doing things. So for you to really data driven, small, and then scale up slowly, continue to build the trust with your staff, and then start adding more intelligence. I have had our customers who were highly resistant before, and they coming back and saying, I would be sitting and crying in front of my computer if I didn't have the bots to do the work. Especially during pandemic, they were sitting at home, clicking one button, bot doing all the work at workplace and getting the work done. That was, my recommendation to the credit unions.
Kevin, let's hear from you.
Yeah, well, in my shoes, in my old role, I always try to look at it that way from that set of eyes. But I think scalability is one of the larger pieces that I think we learned a great lesson throughout this pandemic, the Great Resignation, where a lot of times when we speak with the leadership at these institutions, we're always met with that challenge, the challenge of finding, training, not only training and finding, but maintaining the right skilled workers for these seats. And what we've been doing is nothing short of amazing as far as offering them the ability to grow in the future. And that is certainly, even an intangible at first, because you can't necessarily show it now, because you're saying, hey, well, you may add, every institution I've met with, they want to grow. That's always the focus. They want to grow. So we're offering them the ability to scale up and scale down. We see in the mortgage side of the house, we just mentioned before, how they may tend to scale down a little bit right now, as far as, obviously they're not going to be adding additional mortgage loan officers or processors in that particular area. However, so they can scale down if they wish, if they had already, partnered with someone like Digital Align, they would be able to scale down now, but they could also build those resources into another business area, like the home equity line of credit fast track, where we're offering that ability now. So there's just so much opportunity in the future. But as I stated before, they need to do something. These institutions need to move. They need to keep moving forward. We know what they say, right? If you don't move forward. So we have to keep moving forward towards those end goals.
And Tolani, just to add one more point to that, right? The one of the biggest, the credit union has a workforce, that's a lot of workforce is retiring now, right? If you
Mhm.
look at any credit union, we have people who've been working there for the last 30 years, 20 years. Now the biggest risk credit unions have is that knowledge is going to walk away from that institution. And with the attrition that we are seeing now is the right time for you to capture that knowledge, put it as a process, and then leverage it. Otherwise, all that 30 years that the team has been spending learning it is going to lost in coming years. So I think that's another challenge that we have seen where RPA can really help.
Oh, that's brilliant. I really enjoyed talking with you guys. I can go on and on about, intelligent automation, RPA, but it's a show. We have to come to an end at some point. But I really want people to connect back to you. How can people reach out to you? Like Kevin, how can people reach out to you?
Well, I always tell people they can email me at kevin.m@digitalalign.com, or they can reach me on my cell phone. I am always available, 201-978-7733. And we're also on LinkedIn as well, of course, and our website is digitalalign.com. But I also suggest that when folks are considering to make a move, the first thing I always recommend, do a little research, but just a little research, and then narrow it down to a couple of organizations that you trust. Partner with someone you trust, I think, is probably my biggest piece of advice. And take that first step. Digital Align, we're experts in the credit union area and also the community bank area, but our main focus is the credit union side of the house, and we would love to partner with you.
Brilliant. Rajesh?
Yeah, no, you can reach me on LinkedIn. I'm available there, and you can reach me with my email, rajesh@digitalalign.com. And I call myself a credit union guy just because I know enough technology within that. But that's me. I think my recommendation is to kind of, now is the time. I think we have waited too long. 5 years back, when I talked about this technology, there were a lot of system upgrades were happening. I think if we delay it now, if another crisis happens, we won't be prepared. So
Right.
I think start small and then scale up.
Brilliant. Thanks for coming. I really enjoyed the conversation we had today. There's a lot of takeaways, start small, embed a lot of knowledge in bots. It's quite a lot to, quite a lot to take away from this. For anyone watching us, a full transcription of this video will be available on our website, www.rpajargonbuster.com. And we would also have the transcription also on LinkedIn, with all the relevant tags, all the there's going to be emails. There's going to be a lot of content from Digital Align that will be linked up to the post. So be on the lookout for all of this kind of content, and you can always reach out to me through info@rpajargonbuster.com for your I'm an IA consultant, and we work with all different kind of people in financial services and also in healthcare as well. So please reach out to me if you need any help, and we'll get you started. And thanks for watching. Until next time, stay informed.